Have you ever wondered why she comes back after walking away? Why the same woman who once said she was done suddenly wants to talk again? There is a reason, and it has nothing to do with luck. It is psychology. It is energy. It is timing. And once you understand it, everything about attraction and connection starts to make sense. In this audiobook, we are going to uncover what really happens in a woman's mind after she rejects you, what makes her start thinking, missing, and eventually returning. You will learn the truth about emotional dynamics, silent attraction, and how your energy shifts the moment you stop chasing. If you have ever been left wondering what to do when she comes back, listen until the end, because the answer is not what most people expect. It is not about playing games or pretending not to care. It is about learning the quiet power of detachment, the magnetic pull of self-respect, and the psychology that makes her see you differently when you finally let go. Stay with me until the end, because once you do, you will never see rejection the same way again. Chapter 1. The Psychology of Rejection. Rejection. It is one of the most powerful emotional experiences a person can go through. It touches something deep inside the human mind. It does not just hurt because you lost someone's interest. It hurts because it challenges your identity. You start to question who you are, what you did wrong, and whether you were ever truly enough. Every man who has felt the silence after a woman walks away knows that sinking feeling in his chest. It feels final, like a door has closed forever. But rejection is rarely the end. In truth, it is the beginning of something far more important. Rejection is feedback. It is information about how you show up in the world and how you manage your emotions when life does not go your way. It is not punishment. It is reflection. And when you begin to see it that way, everything changes. The first thing you must understand is that rejection is not personal. It feels personal because it happens to you, but in most cases, it is about perception, timing, and emotional resonance. When a woman decides to walk away, it does not always mean you were not good enough. It means that the version of you she experienced was not aligned with what she needed in that moment. Attraction is emotional alignment. Rejection is simply misalignment. The human brain is wired to interpret social rejection as a threat to survival. In ancient times, being excluded from the tribe meant danger. That same ancient wiring still exists today. When a woman says she is done, your nervous system panics. It triggers the same response as physical pain. Your heart races. Your thoughts spiral. You replay conversations, searching for clues. You feel that deep ache because your mind cannot separate emotional rejection from physical threat. But here is the secret that separates calm men from reactive ones. The pain of rejection is not a sign that you have lost something valuable. It is a signal to evolve. It is your mind's way of saying there is something you need to understand about yourself before you can move forward. The men who grow from rejection do not resist the pain. They study it. They let it reveal their weaknesses and blind spots. They use it as fuel for transformation. When a woman rejects you, she is responding to energy. Words matter, but energy matters more. Energy is what you communicate without speaking. It is in your tone, your posture, your attention, your sense of certainty. A woman can sense insecurity faster than you can mask it. She can feel when your confidence is built on her approval instead of your purpose. She can feel when you need her to validate you. That is what she rejects. Not your looks, not your effort, not your personality. She rejects the energy of dependence. And that is why rejection can become your greatest teacher. It exposes the places where you have outsourced your self-worth. It forces you to face the truth about your own emotional dependence. If you can see rejection as a mirror, it becomes one of the most powerful tools for self-mastery. When you stop viewing rejection as humiliation and start viewing it as transformation, your entire energy shifts. You stop chasing closure from others and start creating it within yourself. The calm man learns to say, "This pain is information. This loss is direction. This moment is opportunity." Psychologically, women are attracted to emotional stability. They might not say it in words, but their instincts crave it. Stability feels safe. When you are calm under pressure, when you stay grounded after rejection, you communicate that safety. You become rare. You become a signal of strength in a world full of men who panic and collapse after being told no. This calmness does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You begin to separate your value from anyone's opinion. That is the birth of emotional freedom. You no longer need validation to know your worth. And ironically, that is when attraction often reappears, because women are drawn to men who do not need them to feel whole. Rejection activates two paths. One leads to bitterness, resentment, and overanalysis. The other leads to growth, peace, and mastery. The first path keeps you trapped in the story of loss. The second path helps you write a new story of strength. The choice is always yours. When you walk the path of mastery, you begin to notice how rejection changes shape. You realize it is not just a relationship issue, it is a life pattern. Every time you get overlooked, every time you are ignored, every time life does not go your way, you are being offered another test of emotional control. Do you react, or do you remain calm? Do you cling to what left, or do you redirect your energy toward what you can build? These small decisions form your emotional identity. The most magnetic men are not the ones who never face rejection. They are the ones who handle it with grace. They know how to breathe through discomfort. They know how to hold eye contact with their own reflection and say, "I am still enough." They do not chase closure because they are the closure. Women feel this energy. Even if she never says it, she notices when you shift, when you stop trying to prove something, when you start focusing on your mission again, when you rebuild your body, your mindset, and your peace. That quiet transformation speaks louder than words. There will come a moment when she feels your absence. It will not be because you posted a picture, sent a message, or tried to get her attention. It will be because your energy changed. She will sense that you have detached, that you have healed, that you have become something stable. And that feeling, that energy, draws her curiosity back. But the real victory is not her return. The real victory is that you no longer need her to return. You evolved beyond the version of yourself that depended on her validation. You found power in stillness. You learned to be calm where you used to be reactive. That is what rejection was trying to teach you all along. At its core, the psychology of rejection is the psychology of identity. It forces you to decide who you are when the world says no. It challenges you to stay grounded when your emotions want to run wild. It is not a battle against her choice. It is a battle for your self-control. When you master that, rejection no longer defines you, it refines you. It strips away the layers of dependence and insecurity until only strength remains. It turns emotional chaos into clarity. So the next time rejection finds you, do not rush to fix it. Let it reveal you. Let it show you where your strength begins. Stand still in the silence. Breathe. Rebuild. Because the man who learns to stay calm after rejection becomes the man every woman remembers. That is the psychology of rejection. It is not about loss, it is about awakening. Chapter 2. Why Women Test After Walking Away. When a woman walks away, it feels like she is done for good. The silence seems final, the distance impossible to bridge, but often what looks like an ending is not closure. It is a test. Women test after walking away because they want to know who you really are when the story does not go your way. They want to see if your strength was real or just performance. Testing is not manipulation. It is instinct. It is the subconscious language of emotional safety. A woman wants to know if your confidence can survive without her attention. She wants to know if your composure was genuine or if it collapses the moment she pulls back. What she is testing is not your charm or your looks. She is testing your emotional foundation. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop taking her behavior personally and start seeing it as information. You begin to read what is happening beneath her words and actions. You realize that testing is a form of curiosity. It is her way of asking, "Have you grown since I left? Have you become the man who no longer needs my validation?" Most men fail these tests because they respond emotionally. They panic, chase, argue, or try to prove something. The moment she withdraws, they rush to close the gap. They text, call, or beg for clarity. They try to remind her of what they had. But what she feels in those moments is not attraction. It is pressure. She sees a man reacting from fear instead of strength. Testing is not about the words she uses. It is about the energy she's trying to read. When she reaches out casually, sends a small message, or makes indirect contact, she is not always looking to reconcile. Sometimes she is only checking to see if you are still emotionally dependent on her. If you answer too quickly, if you respond with eagerness or frustration, you fail the test. The truth is, women are drawn to emotional stability more than anything else. They respect men who remain composed under uncertainty. When she tests you and you stay calm, it communicates that your peace is self-generated. You are no longer controlled by her approval. That energy feels safe, it feels strong, it feels rare. Every test after rejection is a reflection of curiosity. When a woman leaves, she expects that you will spiral, that you will reach out, that you will try to fix things. When you do not, her mind begins to wander. She starts to wonder if she misjudged you. She begins to notice the difference between the man who once sought her attention and the man who now moves with quiet confidence. This shift in energy triggers her instinct to reevaluate. She might like your post, send a short message, or appear suddenly after weeks of silence. It seems small, but in her psychology it is significant. It is a bridge. She is not reaching out because she wants to resume the past. She is reaching out because she wants to understand who you have become. The way you handle these moments defines your entire power dynamic. If you respond with anger, desperation, or overexcitement, you communicate that you have not changed. But if you respond with calm acknowledgement, without attachment, you send a different message. You show that you are not seeking her, but you are not avoiding her either. You are steady. You are grounded. You are in control of your reality. That is the energy that women cannot forget. When a woman tests you after walking away, it is because she is emotionally drawn to strength. She wants to feel that she can trust your steadiness again. Even if she was the one who ended things, she still craves the presence of stability. A man who remains balanced after rejection becomes mysterious. He becomes a question mark in her mind. Most men fall apart, but you did not. Most men chase, but you did not. That calm indifference makes her wonder what she missed. It is important to understand that testing does not always look like direct communication. Sometimes it comes through silence. Sometimes she disappears completely just to see if you will reach out. She might post something online that she knows you will see. She might mention you indirectly to mutual friends. These small gestures are emotional probes. They are ways of saying, "Are you still waiting for me?" Your response should always be rooted in stillness. The moment you try to prove something, you lose the power you have built. The moment you try to convince her of your value, you give it away. You do not pass the test by playing games. You pass by being genuine and composed. You pass by living your life with focus and purpose, whether she is watching or not. The real goal is not to pass her test. The real goal is to reach the point where her tests no longer matter. You grow so complete in yourself that her approval, her curiosity, or her silence all mean the same thing. You become unshakable. That is the highest form of masculine energy. It is not arrogance or coldness. It is peace. When you reach that level, you attract differently. You no longer draw people through words or effort. You draw them through energy. A woman can feel when a man has detached from needing her. She can sense when his purpose comes first. That presence feels magnetic because it carries self-respect. Women test after walking away because they want to know if the man they once knew has become something greater. They want to see if he has evolved beyond the emotional patterns that cause disconnection. They are drawn to strength that is quiet, confidence that is real, and independence that is natural. You must learn to appreciate these tests instead of resenting them. Each one gives you another chance to demonstrate growth. Each one is a moment to show that you are no longer defined by emotion, but guided by discipline. When she reaches out, you do not ignore her to appear strong. You respond with composure, not attachment. You lead the interaction with calm curiosity. You show, not tell, that you are different. Over time, she begins to realize something profound. You no longer need her validation, yet she still feels drawn to you. That is the paradox of attraction. When you needed her, she resisted you. When you let go, she started to come closer. That is the power of energy. The man who understands this no longer fears rejection or testing. He understands the rhythm of human psychology. He knows that attraction lives in tension, not comfort. He knows that respect grows from restraint, not reaction. He knows that love cannot survive without independence. When you stop reacting to her tests, you take control of your emotional world. You stop trying to read her moves, and instead, you master your own. You become the steady center in a world of emotional chaos. You stop chasing the return of a woman and start building the return of your confidence. In time, you will notice a quiet reversal. The same woman who once tested you begins to soften. The same person who walked away begins to circle back. Not because you chased her, but because your calmness reminded her of what she could not find elsewhere. The very energy that once intimidated her becomes the energy she now craves. That is why women test after walking away. They are searching for what feels safe, grounded, and real. They are drawn to men who remain calm in uncertainty, and the more you master that stillness, the more life itself begins to test you in the same way. Stay centered. Stay patient. Every test is a mirror. Every silence is a lesson. When you learn to remain composed through them all, you stop needing anyone to return. You become the kind of man people always come back to. That is not manipulation. It is magnetism. It is what happens when peace becomes your power. Chapter 3. The Power of Absence. Presence can create comfort. Absence creates desire. When you are constantly available, people begin to take your presence for granted. They stop feeling your energy because they never have to miss it. But when you step away, when you withdraw your attention and focus it on your own life, something shifts in the dynamic. What was once ordinary becomes rare. What was once overlooked becomes noticed. Absence has power because it introduces mystery. It creates space for reflection. It forces others to sit with their own emotions without the constant reassurance of your presence. This is why silence can speak louder than any argument, and why distance can communicate strength better than words ever could. When a woman walks away and you do not chase, your absence becomes her teacher. It shows her something that words never could. It reveals how much of her attraction depended on your attention. It reminds her of the energy you used to bring into her life, and now that energy is missing. She may not say it, but she feels it. The absence becomes an emotional echo that follows her long after the last conversation. Most men fear silence because they mistake it for weakness. They believe that if they do not reach out, if they do not explain themselves, they will lose her completely. But the truth is, silence is not surrender. It is control. When you choose not to chase, you reclaim your power. You stop trying to convince someone of your worth and start embodying it. That quiet decision changes everything. Absence allows emotional gravity to work in your favor. The human mind is wired to notice what it loses. It remembers intensity, not constancy. When you are gone, she begins to recall the moments that made her feel something. She replays the small things she once ignored. She starts to feel the void that your presence used to fill. This is not manipulation. It is psychology. People often realize value only when they can no longer touch it. In relationships, emotional distance resets perception. When you are always available, your energy becomes background noise. But when you step away with calm intention, you become the silence that lingers. It is not about disappearing out of anger or bitterness. It is about removing yourself from dynamics that no longer honor your value. It is about letting absence do what words cannot. A man who understands the power of absence is never desperate. He does not need to argue, explain, or prove. His silence speaks for him. It communicates that his peace is sacred, that his time is valuable, and that his life continues with purpose, whether she stays or goes. That level of detachment commands respect because it shows strength that cannot be faked. When you pull back, something interesting happens in her mind. At first, she may feel relief, thinking the space is what she wanted. But over time, that relief turns into curiosity. Then curiosity turns into reflection. Reflection turns into nostalgia, and nostalgia becomes attraction. The same silence that once seemed cold becomes magnetic. She begins to wonder where you went, what you are doing, and whether you still think about her. That curiosity is the first spark of re-engagement. Absence creates room for you to grow. It is not just a tactic to make someone miss you. It is an opportunity to rebuild yourself. When you stop focusing on what left and start investing in your own development, your energy changes. You begin to move differently. You think clearer, speak calmer, and carry yourself with quiet confidence. That transformation is what people feel when they eventually return. They are not drawn to your absence itself. They are drawn to the man you became in that absence. Women are naturally drawn to emotional evolution. They can sense when a man has upgraded his life. They feel when his priorities have shifted from attachment to purpose. When you disappear and come back stronger, it creates a contrast. She remembers who you were, but sees who you have become. That difference is what reignites attraction. Stillness is part of your power. You do not need to prove that you are over her. You do not need to act indifferent. You simply focus on becoming better. Your absence should not feel like punishment. It should feel like peace. It should feel like a man returning to himself. When you disappear from someone's world without bitterness, you create two outcomes. Either she respects your decision and lets you go, or she feels your absence and begins to reflect. In both cases, you win. You protect your peace and preserve your dignity. You show that you can stand on your own, that independence is what makes your energy rare. There is a deep difference between disappearing to manipulate and stepping away to grow. The first comes from fear. The second comes from self-respect. True absence is calm. It carries no resentment. It simply says, I will not force what is not meant for me. That kind of energy carries quiet authority. Every man must learn when to walk away, not to create distance for attention, but to protect the energy that defines him. Absence teaches you patience. It teaches you how to detach from outcomes. It teaches you that your presence has weight. And the more you understand that weight, the more intentional you become about where you place it. When you master absence, you begin to move differently. You no longer explain your silence. You no longer argue for closure. You no longer fight to be understood. You realize that peace does not come from convincing others. It comes from being content with your truth. That stillness radiates strength, and people feel it long before they admit it. A woman feels the difference between a man who is angry and a man who is centered. One withdraws out of pain, the other withdraws out of peace. When you step away with calmness instead of resentment, it shifts everything. It makes her question whether she ever really knew you. It makes her curious about the stability she never appreciated. It makes her remember the comfort she once felt in your presence. Absence is not about control, it is about clarity. It reveals who values your presence and who only valued your attention. It separates those who truly care from those who were only comfortable. It purifies your connections and strengthens your sense of self. The most confident men in the world understand this truth. They know when to show up and when to walk away. They know that silence can teach more than speech. They know that space can heal what words cannot. They do not fear being forgotten because they know genuine presence leaves a permanent impression. So let your absence speak. Let it say everything that words cannot. Let it become a mirror for both of you. Let it show her who you are without needing to announce it. You do not chase. You do not perform. You simply return to your purpose and let time reveal the truth. If she comes back, it will not be because you tried to make her. It will be because she felt your growth. And if she does not, you still win, because your evolution was never about her. It was about you reclaiming your peace, your direction, and your strength. That is the power of absence. It does not destroy connection. It purifies it. It reminds others of your value and reminds you of your worth. It teaches you that sometimes silence is not emptiness. It is transformation happening quietly. The man who understands this never fears distance. He knows that the right people will always feel his absence. And when they do, they will return, not to the man he was, but to the man he has become. Chapter 4. Detachment and Emotional Alchemy. You cannot attract what you are still attached to. Every time you chase, overthink, or seek reassurance, you are sending out a message that you are incomplete. Detachment is not about not caring. It is about learning how to hold space for your emotions without being ruled by them. It is the quiet understanding that love and peace cannot coexist with obsession. Most men mistake detachment for distance. They think that to be detached means to stop feeling altogether, to harden their hearts, or to pretend they are unaffected. But true detachment is strength. It is emotional clarity. It is the ability to love without losing yourself, to give without expecting, and to walk away when peace requires it. When you master detachment, you become the calm in the middle of every storm. Your energy no longer rises and falls with how others treat you. You stop chasing closure and start creating it. You stop needing to prove anything because your confidence comes from a deeper place. It comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. Emotional alchemy is the process of transforming pain into power. It is turning rejection, heartbreak, and disappointment into fuel for growth. Every time you resist the impulse to react, you are practicing emotional alchemy. Every time you choose silence over chaos, you are refining your energy. Every time you allow yourself to feel pain without letting it define you, you are transmuting weakness into wisdom. Detachment and emotional alchemy work together. Detachment gives you space to think. Alchemy gives you the strength to evolve. Together, they make you unshakable. When a woman rejects you, detachment allows you to see the situation for what it is. You stop seeing her as the source of your happiness. You begin to see yourself as the source. You stop asking why she pulled away and start asking why you lost focus. You start to notice how often you tied your confidence to her attention. You start to realize that the real problem was not her rejection. It was your attachment to her approval. Every emotional reaction is a reflection of attachment. The more attached you are to an outcome, the more unstable you become when it slips away. Detachment teaches you to release control. It does not mean you do not care. It means you care correctly. You love freely, but without possession. You give without expectation. You trust without fear. That is the foundation of emotional maturity. Women are drawn to men who embody emotional freedom. They can sense when a man is calm in uncertainty. They can feel when his peace does not depend on them. That kind of energy feels grounded. It feels safe. It feels magnetic. A man who is truly detached does not withdraw to punish or manipulate. He steps back to protect his peace. His stillness does not come from indifference. It comes from confidence. Detachment also changes how you communicate. You stop speaking from insecurity. You stop explaining yourself just to be understood. You learn to let silence do the work. You realize that every time you try to convince someone to value you, you are teaching them that your worth is negotiable. True strength is quiet. It does not need validation. It speaks through consistency and presence. Emotional alchemy begins when you allow yourself to feel everything without judgment. You stop resisting sadness. You stop avoiding discomfort. Instead, you let it move through you. Pain has information. It shows you where you are still holding on. It shows you the parts of yourself that still crave approval, attention, or certainty. When you face pain directly, it begins to lose its grip. Most people never learn emotional alchemy because they are afraid of feeling. They distract themselves with noise, attention, or new connections. They avoid silence because silence forces them to face the truth. But silence is where transformation happens. It is where emotion becomes insight, and insight becomes strength. When you are detached, you begin to observe instead of react. You notice your thoughts without becoming them. You see your emotions rise and fall like waves. You realize that peace is not the absence of emotion. It is mastery over it. That is the essence of emotional alchemy. It is the transformation of reaction into reflection and reflection into power. When you start to live this way, everything changes. You no longer chase people, you attract them. You no longer explain your worth, you embody it. You no longer seek closure, you create it through acceptance. This is what it means to stand in your power. It is not arrogance, it is awareness. It is knowing that your energy is your responsibility. Detachment is also what makes you unforgettable. Because while most people live at the mercy of their emotions, you move through life with balance. You are calm when others are anxious. You are stable when others are uncertain. That kind of energy stands out. It leaves an impression long after you are gone. A woman may not fully understand why she thinks of you after walking away, but deep down, she remembers how she felt in your presence. She remembers the peace. She remembers the steadiness. That memory becomes a magnet. She returns not to chase attention, but to reconnect with the calm energy she once felt around you. That is the power of detachment. It turns you into the kind of man who cannot be shaken by emotion or circumstance. You no longer react impulsively. You respond with intention. You no longer depend on others to regulate your feelings. You regulate yourself. You become your own anchor in every storm. There is a saying that the man who controls nothing controls everything. It means that when you stop trying to control outcomes, you gain mastery over your own state. You no longer need to know what will happen next because you trust yourself to handle it. That is true freedom. When you reach that point, relationships feel lighter. You connect without fear of loss. You love without trying to possess. You listen without needing to be right. You give without expecting anything back. This is not weakness. It is strength in its highest form. Emotional alchemy teaches you that every loss is an initiation into power. Every rejection is a lesson in clarity. Every disappointment refines your patience. You begin to see that life is not happening to you. It is shaping you. Every painful experience is simply another chance to practice calmness, awareness, and control. When you become a man of detachment, you stop chasing the high of approval and start seeking the depth of peace. You stop depending on outcomes to feel fulfilled. You stop reacting to what others do. You live from a place of choice instead of fear. And when you live that way, everything you once chased begins to move toward you naturally. Detachment is not the end of love. It is the purification of it. It allows you to love people for who they are, not for what they give you. It lets you appreciate connection without fearing loss. It helps you stay grounded in a world that constantly tries to pull you into emotional chaos. When you reach this level of mastery, you stop trying to win people back. You stop trying to prove your worth. You start living with quiet confidence, knowing that what is meant for you will always find you. You begin to see that the point was never to make anyone come back. The point was to become someone who never loses himself again. That is detachment. That is emotional alchemy. It is not the absence of emotion. It is the evolution of it. It is turning everything that once hurt you into wisdom that now guides you. And once you reach that place, you will understand something few ever do. You will realize that peace is the most powerful energy in the world, because peace cannot be rejected, only felt. And once someone feels that peace within you, they will always remember it. Chapter 5. The shift from neediness to value. Neediness is invisible at first. It hides behind compliments, constant communication, and the desire to feel connected. But over time, it reveals itself through energy. You can hear it in the tone of a text, sense it in a message that comes too quickly, and feel it in the tension between wanting someone and needing them. Neediness is not about love. It is about fear. The fear of being without validation, the fear of not being enough, and the fear of losing control. The truth is, people are not drawn to neediness. They are drawn to value. And value begins the moment you realize that your worth is not something another person can give you. It is something you own completely. When you stop seeking approval and start radiating confidence, everything about your energy changes. You stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself. Most men approach attraction from the wrong direction. They think love is about convincing someone to see their worth. They believe consistency means never giving space, and that vulnerability means constant emotional exposure. But genuine connection is built on balance, not dependence. The more you try to hold on to someone, the more they want to pull away. The more you chase, the faster they run. The solution is not to become colder, but to become more complete. Neediness begins when you make someone else responsible for how you feel. It shows up when you start measuring your self-esteem by how often they respond or how much attention they give you. You begin to bend your behavior to keep them comfortable, even when it costs you your peace. You start to compromise your boundaries in exchange for validation. But every time you do that, you lose a little of your value in their eyes. They stop seeing you as a strong individual and start seeing you as emotionally dependent. The shift from neediness to value is an inner transformation. It begins with awareness. You start noticing the moments when you act from fear instead of confidence. You start recognizing the difference between giving from abundance and giving from emptiness. You begin to understand that true attraction is not about proving you are good enough. It is about embodying self-respect so deeply that people feel it without you having to say a word. When you begin to value yourself, everything changes. You stop texting out of anxiety. You stop waiting by your phone. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop needing constant reassurance that you are wanted. Instead, you begin to trust your energy. You begin to trust that the right people will recognize your worth without you having to fight for it. That kind of calm confidence is magnetic. Women are deeply intuitive. They can feel when a man's attention comes from confidence or desperation. They can sense when your focus is grounded in purpose or scattered by insecurity. When your energy becomes centered, you communicate something powerful without words, that you are not chasing love, you are attracting it. You are not seeking validation, you are radiating certainty. When you shift from neediness to value, you also change how you give. You stop giving to receive something in return. You stop performing kindness in hopes of attention. Instead, your giving becomes natural and detached from outcome. It comes from fullness, not emptiness. And people feel that difference immediately. Your presence becomes lighter. Your words carry more weight. Your silence feels grounded instead of cold. Neediness always comes from lack, but value comes from abundance. When you know who you are, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop trying to explain yourself to people who do not listen. You stop chasing closure from those who already understand but simply do not care. You realize that your energy is precious and not everyone deserves access to it. This understanding changes how people treat you. It changes how women respond to you. It changes how you see yourself. Every time you say no when your boundaries are tested, you grow in value. Every time you choose peace over chaos, you strengthen your presence. Every time you walk away instead of begging to be understood, you reinforce your power. Value is not built in what you say. It is built in what you tolerate. When your standards rise, your energy rises with them. And when your energy rises, people cannot help but notice. Women come back to men who embody value because value is rare. Most people live in reaction. They give away their energy without thought. They chase connection without balance. But when you live with intention, your presence becomes distinct. You no longer need to impress anyone. You no longer need to chase attention. You simply live with purpose, and that energy draws people to you naturally. To shift from neediness to value, you must learn to sit with your discomfort. When you feel the urge to chase, pause. When you want to send a message just to feel reassurance, breathe. When you start overthinking someone's silence, return your focus to yourself. Ask, what am I afraid of right now? The answer will almost always lead back to insecurity. And that insecurity is not something you fix through others. It is something you heal within yourself. Value is built through consistency. It grows through discipline. It shows in how you treat yourself when no one is watching. It shows in how you speak to yourself when life gets quiet. When you live with self-respect, you teach the world how to treat you. You stop needing attention to feel seen because you already see yourself clearly. As you evolve, you begin to understand that value does not shout. It whispers. It does not chase. It attracts. It does not beg. It chooses. That quiet self-assurance is what people remember long after you leave. It is what makes your absence felt. It is what makes your return powerful. The man who has learned his value is not arrogant. He is simply at peace. And that peace is the most attractive energy there is. Neediness repels because it signals lack. Value attracts because it radiates abundance. The shift happens not when you stop caring, but when you stop clinging. You learn to love freely, knowing that what is meant for you will never require you to betray yourself to keep it. You stop chasing people and start chasing purpose. You stop proving your worth and start living it. When you embody value, women begin to see you differently. They notice the steadiness in your eyes, the calm in your words, the quiet confidence in how you move. They feel that you are no longer seeking to fill a void, but rather sharing from overflow. That energy makes you unforgettable. It makes you magnetic. It makes you rare. So do not fear letting go of neediness. Let it die. Let every anxious impulse burn away until all that remains is self-respect. Let your silence carry the weight of your growth. Let your peace speak louder than your effort, because when you live in value, the world rearranges itself around you. The people who once took you for granted begin to feel your absence. The ones who left begin to wonder what changed. And those who never saw your worth begin to recognize it too late. You do not need to chase anyone when you are the prize. You only need to remember it. When you know your value deeply, you become the standard. You become the calm others crave. You become the peace others search for, and that is when the dynamic shifts completely. The man who was once needy becomes the man who is needed. The man who once chased now attracts. The man who once begged for attention now commands respect without asking for it. That is the transformation. That is the shift from neediness to value. Chapter 6. The magnetic power of emotional control. A man who controls his emotions controls his reality. Emotional control is not about suppression. It is about mastery. It is the ability to feel deeply without letting those feelings dictate your behavior. It is the quiet strength that separates boys from men and men from leaders. Emotional control is magnetic because it represents stability in a chaotic world. People, especially women, are drawn to those who remain calm when others panic. They feel safer around someone whose peace cannot be shaken by circumstances. When a woman sees a man handle pressure with composure, she feels something instinctive. She feels trust, and trust is the foundation of attraction. Every man faces moments when emotions threaten to take over. The text that does not come, the silence that lingers, the words that cut deeper than expected. These moments test who you are. Most people react impulsively. They raise their voice, send angry messages, or withdraw in bitterness. But emotional control means staying composed even when your mind wants to collapse. It means pausing before you speak, thinking before you respond, and moving with intention instead of impulse. When you remain calm in moments that would normally trigger you, something powerful happens. You start to shift from emotional dependency to emotional dominance. You stop living as a victim of your emotions and start using them as information. You begin to understand that feelings are not commands, they are signals. Anger shows you where your boundaries have been crossed. Sadness shows you where you need healing. Fear shows you where your faith is weak. Once you learn to interpret these signals, you gain control over yourself. Women subconsciously test for this quality. They want to know how you respond under emotional pressure. They want to see whether you crumble when challenged or stay grounded. When you lose your temper, when you chase, when you argue to prove a point, you show instability. But when you remain calm, when you stay composed and grounded, you communicate something stronger than words. You communicate that you are centered. That calmness becomes a form of silent leadership. Emotional control does not mean you never feel anger, sadness, or jealousy. It means you can feel them without acting from them. It means you can stand in the fire of emotion without burning everything around you. It means that you can experience intensity while maintaining clarity. A man who can do that becomes rare because most people live as prisoners to their moods. Control begins with awareness. You cannot manage what you do not notice. The next time you feel triggered, pause and observe. Ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Most emotional pain comes from the stories we create, not the events themselves. Someone ignores your message, and your mind creates a story of rejection. A woman pulls away, and you imagine she no longer values you, but the reality might be different. When you stop feeding those stories, you stop creating unnecessary pain. Awareness leads to separation. You begin to realize that your thoughts and feelings are not you. They are passing weather in the sky of your consciousness. When you identify with every thought, you become reactive. When you observe them from a distance, you gain power. You learn to respond, not react. That is the essence of emotional control. Women are naturally drawn to men who display this level of composure. They can sense when a man's emotions serve him instead of enslaving him. It makes him mysterious because he cannot be easily predicted or manipulated. It makes him attractive because he feels safe and stable. It makes him respected because his power is quiet. Emotional control is also the key to maintaining long-term attraction. In the early stages of connection, emotions are high and unpredictable. Passion can make people overlook red flags. But as time passes, emotional control determines whether that connection deepens or collapses. A man who cannot manage his emotions becomes exhausting to be around. His reactions create tension. His mood dictates the energy of the relationship. But a man who remains composed creates harmony. His calmness becomes contagious. The secret is not to resist your emotions, but to redirect them. When you feel anger, use it to set boundaries instead of attacking. When you feel fear, use it as motivation to prepare. When you feel sadness, use it to reflect and grow. Every emotion has power. Emotional control is simply learning how to use that power constructively. Think of your emotions like water. When they overflow, they can flood everything around you. But when you channel them, they can generate energy. The same passion that makes you reactive can make you unstoppable when focused on purpose. The same intensity that causes arguments can fuel achievement when directed toward growth. That is emotional alchemy in motion, transforming raw emotion into disciplined strength. The most powerful men do not suppress emotions, they guide them. They let feelings flow through awareness and then transform them into wisdom, action, and calmness. That balance is magnetic. Women feel it because it communicates security. They may not understand why they feel drawn to it, but they sense it. They sense that this man is not moved by chaos. They sense that his peace is earned, not given. A man with emotional control becomes rare because he no longer reacts to provocation. He does not try to win every argument. He does not respond to every challenge. He knows that silence can sometimes be more powerful than explanation. He knows that patience can outlast resistance. He knows that control is not about dominating others, but mastering himself. When you master your emotions, you master attraction, because attraction is not only physical, it is emotional resonance. A woman feels drawn to what makes her feel safe, inspired, and steady. When she senses that you can handle yourself, she knows you can handle life. That realization creates deep respect and desire. Emotional control is not a one-time achievement. It is a daily discipline. It grows through practice. You will fail sometimes. You will react. You will lose composure. But each time you recover faster, you are improving. Each time you pause before reacting, you are building power. Each time you choose peace over panic, you are becoming the kind of man who commands respect effortlessly. Eventually, emotional control stops being something you do and becomes who you are. It becomes your nature. You respond to challenges with calm clarity. You handle rejection with quiet confidence. You move through life with emotional precision. People begin to notice, not because you talk about it, but because they feel it in your presence. The man who controls his emotions becomes unshakable. He is not thrown off balance by temporary situations. He does not seek revenge or validation. He does not chase what he has outgrown. He moves with peace. He speaks with intent. He acts with patience. And that combination of traits creates an energy that is both attractive and rare. Emotional control does not make you emotionless. It makes you powerful. It allows you to experience life fully without being consumed by it. It makes your love deeper because it is not desperate. It makes your strength more grounded because it is not forced. It makes your silence meaningful because it carries awareness instead of avoidance. A man who learns this becomes magnetic, not because he tries to be, but because calmness is magnetic in a world addicted to reaction. His presence feels different. His energy feels grounded. His words carry weight. His silence commands attention. That is the magnetic power of emotional control. It is not about being cold. It is about being conscious. It is not about hiding how you feel. It is about guiding what you feel. It is about becoming the kind of man who does not need to control others because he has already mastered himself. And when you reach that level, people return to your life not because you chase them, but because your peace pulls them back. They remember how they felt in your presence. They remember the steadiness, the calm, the safety. That memory lingers. And that is when you realize something profound. The most powerful emotion is not passion, it is peace. Because passion may excite the heart, but peace captures the soul. Chapter 7. When silence speaks louder than words. Silence has power that words can never touch. It unsettles, it invites reflection, and it reveals truth. Most people are afraid of silence because it removes their ability to control perception. Words can hide insecurity, but silence exposes it. Words can convince, but silence tests what is real. When you master silence, you begin to communicate on a deeper level. When a woman walks away or tests your strength, your silence becomes her mirror. It reflects back to her the weight of her own choices. It makes her face what she tried to avoid. Silence can be louder than any explanation because while words fill space, silence creates it. And in that space, emotions grow. Many men misunderstand silence. They see it as weakness, as inaction, as giving up. But silence is not surrender. It is strategy. It is choosing not to play a game that cannot be won with words. When you respond to rejection with calm stillness, you shift the balance of power. You stop reacting and start leading. In relationships and attraction, silence is the purest form of communication. It removes noise, excuses, and manipulation. It gives truth a chance to surface. When you go quiet after chaos, people begin to feel your absence. They start replaying what they said, what they did, and what they took for granted. That is when silence begins to speak. You do not use silence to punish. You use it to protect. You protect your peace, your focus, and your self-respect. You create distance not because you hate them, but because you value yourself enough not to fight for attention. The moment you stop explaining yourself to someone who does not listen, you reclaim your energy. The moment you stop begging for closure, you create your own. A woman feels a man's silence more deeply than his anger. Anger she can argue with. Silence she cannot control. Anger fades quickly. Silence lingers. It makes her think, it makes her feel, it makes her curious, it makes her wonder if she truly understood you. That curiosity grows with every day you stay composed. Silence also exposes emotional truth. When you stop chasing, you see who reaches out. When you stop initiating, you see who values your presence. When you step back, you see what stays connected without force. It is through silence that clarity arrives. It reveals who is genuine and who only needed your attention to feel important. Silence is difficult at first because it feels unnatural. We are conditioned to fix things through communication. But there are moments when words only create more confusion. When emotions are high, words can become weapons. They can distort meaning and feed chaos. In those moments, silence is not avoidance. It is maturity. It is understanding that sometimes peace speaks louder than logic. Women often come back to silence. They are drawn to the calm strength it represents. A man who can stay composed without needing to explain himself becomes magnetic. His silence carries confidence. It says, "I do not chase what is not mine. I do not beg for what is already leaving. I trust time to reveal truth." That kind of energy is unforgettable because it is so rare. When you practice silence correctly, you are not closing your heart. You are centering it. You are no longer speaking from pain. You are listening to understanding. You are allowing both yourself and the other person to process emotions without interference. You are teaching yourself patience, and in that patience, power grows. Silence also teaches presence. When you stop reacting, you start observing. You begin to see patterns in your relationships and in yourself. You notice what triggers you and why. You begin to understand how much of your pain came from over-explaining and over-giving. You realize that silence gives you back control over your emotional energy. The strongest men are those who can stay silent when provoked. They can hold their ground without defending every accusation. They know that truth does not need constant proof. Their calmness frustrates those who depend on reaction to feel powerful. But silence is not passive. It is active restraint. It is energy contained, not energy lost. Silence creates attraction because it introduces uncertainty. It breaks patterns. When you stop reaching out, you disrupt her expectations. She starts to question the stability of her assumptions. Was he really that invested? Has he moved on? Did she misjudge his worth? That uncertainty plants curiosity, and curiosity is the seed of renewed attraction. But for silence to have power, it must come from strength, not resentment. If you go quiet while secretly hoping for a reaction, that is manipulation. If you withdraw to make someone miss you, that is still neediness. True silence is peaceful. It expects nothing. It simply stands firm in dignity. It communicates through presence, not performance. There is a reason ancient leaders, philosophers, and warriors valued silence. They understood that words lose meaning when overused. They understood that silence sharpens perception. It teaches discipline. It builds emotional intelligence. It allows the world to reveal itself to you without interference. In modern relationships, silence has become rare. People constantly seek distraction and reassurance. They want immediate answers, constant messages, and endless validation. But silence breaks this pattern. It slows time. It forces depth. It invites reflection. It separates what is real from what is impulsive. A man who understands silence does not rush to fix things. He knows that time and stillness often do the work that words cannot. He knows that distance can rebuild perspective better than arguments ever could. He knows that his silence is not emptiness, but strength in its purest form. When a woman feels your silence, she begins to remember your value. She remembers your steadiness, your peace, your restraint. She begins to compare that calmness with the noise of everything else around her. She realizes that silence is not coldness, it is confidence, and that realization creates emotional gravity. Your silence becomes your message. It says, I am not afraid of losing what is not aligned with me. I am not chasing temporary attention. I am not seeking validation. I am grounded in peace, and peace does not beg. That unspoken message carries more impact than any speech could. Over time, silence becomes your most powerful response. It ends arguments that words would only prolong. It protects your dignity when emotion tempts you to overreact. It keeps your energy clean when others try to provoke you. It reminds you that you are responsible for your peace, not for anyone else's perception. A man who understands this no longer fears being misunderstood. He no longer rushes to explain himself to everyone. He realizes that truth does not always need to be spoken. Sometimes it just needs to be lived. And people who are meant to understand will feel it without words. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is the elevation of it. It speaks through action, through consistency, and through presence. It says everything that noise cannot. It draws people back without force because it creates emotional contrast. It shows what life feels like with and without your energy. That is the secret of silence. It does not demand attention. It earns it. It does not seek validation. It commands respect. It does not chase understanding. It becomes it. And when you learn to wield silence with wisdom, you become unshakable. You stop needing words to prove your worth. You stop reacting to chaos. You stop chasing closure. You simply let your calmness speak for you. In time, the same people who ignored your words will start to feel your silence. They will realize what it meant. They will remember the steadiness they once took for granted. And that is when silence delivers its message clearly, because silence, when rooted in peace, always says the most. Chapter 8. Reclaiming your masculine energy. There comes a time in every man's life when he realizes that his power was never lost. It was only misplaced. It was scattered in the moments he overgave, in the times he sought approval, and in the days he forgot who he was. Reclaiming your masculine energy is not about becoming harder. It is about becoming whole. It is about remembering the calm strength that was always there beneath the noise. Masculine energy is presence. It is focus. It is direction. It's the silent authority that does not need to prove itself. When a man stands in this energy, everything around him begins to align. People sense it. Women feel it. Life responds to it. Reclaiming that energy means returning to yourself, to your purpose, to your grounded center. Many men lose this connection because they give their energy away too easily. They over-explain, over-apologize, over-commit, and overthink. They start living through emotion rather than mission. They start defining their worth by external validation. But the truth is, masculine energy thrives in clarity, not confusion. It finds power in discipline, not in drama. It expresses love through stability, not through need. When you reclaim your masculine energy, you stop chasing. You stop begging for attention. You stop trying to force people to see your value. Instead, you focus on purpose. You build yourself from the inside out. You create structure in your mind, strength in your body, and stillness in your soul. You no longer move through the world searching for something to complete you. You realize you were already complete. Women are drawn to this energy because it represents safety. A man who has reclaimed his masculine core does not get lost in emotional storms. He listens without being consumed. He feels deeply but remains grounded. His presence brings balance, and that balance is what attracts. When a woman feels that kind of energy, she relaxes. She feels safe to be feminine, expressive, and vulnerable. She feels the stability that allows her to open up. Reclaiming your masculine energy begins with awareness. You have to recognize the moments when you gave it away. Think back to the times you sacrificed your boundaries for attention. The moments you ignored your intuition to please someone else. The days you stopped leading yourself because you feared being alone. Every time you did that, you disconnected from your power. To reclaim it, you must take full responsibility for your emotions, your actions, and your focus. No one is coming to rescue you. No one is coming to hand you clarity. The world respects the man who builds himself. The man who wakes up each day and chooses growth over comfort. Responsibility is the gateway to power. When you stop blaming others and start leading yourself, you begin to operate differently. Masculine energy is steady, not loud. It does not need to control people. It controls itself. It does not seek dominance through force, but through awareness. A man in his masculine energy can walk into a room and say nothing, yet everyone feels his presence. That presence is earned through discipline, integrity, and self-respect. When you live disconnected from that energy, you become reactive. You get lost in overthinking. You allow emotions to pull you in every direction. You try to solve emotional chaos with logic and end up feeling drained. But when you reconnect to your masculine essence, you move with intention. You do not chase feelings. You create direction. You bring order to uncertainty. One of the ways to rebuild masculine energy is through solitude. Many men fear being alone, yet solitude is the forge where strength is created. It is in quiet moments that you rediscover yourself. It is when no one is watching that you remember what you stand for. In solitude, you meet your thoughts honestly. You face your fears without distraction. You learn to be your own anchor. Physical discipline also strengthens masculine energy. Training your body is not only about health, it is about integrity. When you push through discomfort, you remind yourself that you can endure. You reconnect with your primal energy, the part of you that thrives in challenge. Every rep, every drop of sweat, every moment of resistance is a conversation with your strength. Purpose is another pillar of masculine energy. Without purpose, a man drifts. He becomes lost in the emotional tides of others. But with purpose, everything changes. Your focus sharpens. Your energy aligns. You stop wasting time on what does not serve you. Purpose gives your life direction, and direction gives your energy meaning. Women are naturally drawn to men who live with direction because it signals certainty. It shows leadership. It radiates confidence. When you operate from masculine energy, you are not chasing love. You are embodying it. You do not seek attention. You inspire it. You do not react to tests. You remain centered through them. You are the calm in the storm. That steadiness is what makes you magnetic. It is what makes women come back. Because while attraction may begin with excitement, it endures through stability. The journey of reclaiming your masculine energy is not about becoming emotionless. It is about balancing heart and discipline. It is about learning when to feel and when to act. It is about knowing that strength and sensitivity are not opposites, but complements. A man who has mastered both becomes deeply grounded and emotionally intelligent. As you evolve, you will notice how your energy changes the world around you. People respond differently. Women look at you with curiosity and respect. They sense something unspoken. They feel that you are not easily moved by emotion, yet you are not disconnected from it either. You carry warmth, but it is balanced with composure. You have passion, but it is guided by control. To reclaim your masculine energy fully, you must stop living for validation and start living for alignment. Ask yourself daily, am I living with intention or reaction? Am I chasing peace or proving worth? Am I giving from strength or from emptiness? The answers to these questions will guide your path. True masculine energy is quiet confidence. It does not need to prove superiority. It does not compete for attention. It does not fear rejection because it knows rejection cannot diminish value. It is a deep knowing that your worth is self-created, not socially confirmed. Women return to that energy because it feels unshakable. It is the energy of a man who no longer needs to convince. He simply is. He embodies strength without arrogance, power without aggression, love without attachment. His calmness feels like home. When you reclaim your masculine energy, you no longer move from lack. You move from fullness. You become intentional with your time, your attention, and your emotions. You start to build a life that reflects strength rather than searching for relationships to fill weakness. The world will always test your balance. Life will challenge your composure, but every challenge is a reminder to return to your center. That is the essence of masculine energy, to remain steady in motion, calm in chaos, and certain in uncertainty. As you grow into this energy, you stop fearing loss. You understand that nothing real can be taken from you. You stop begging for love and start becoming love. You stop seeking validation and start living with purpose. That shift transforms everything, because when a man reclaims his masculine energy, he reclaims his life. He reclaims his peace, and in doing so, he becomes the kind of man the world cannot forget. Chapter 9. The Psychology of Pulling Away. Attraction is not built in closeness. It is revealed in distance. When you pull away, you give space for truth to surface. You learn what is real, who is real, and what was only being held together by your effort. Pulling away is not about manipulation. It is about restoration. It is about reclaiming your balance when connection begins to cost you your peace. Most people misunderstand distance. They see it as cold, uncaring, or prideful. But the psychology behind pulling away is deeper than emotion. It is about energy, respect, and awareness. When someone takes your presence for granted, your absence becomes your teacher. When you stop showing up the same way, you allow space for reflection. That space becomes the mirror through which people see their behavior clearly for the first time. In relationships, emotional distance has power. It exposes dependency. It reveals imbalance. When you are always available, your energy loses weight. When you are always responsive, your presence becomes predictable. But when you pull back with quiet confidence, the energy shifts. People start to notice. They start to wonder. They start to remember what they once felt when they were still trying to earn your attention. Pulling away does not mean disappearing without reason. It means detaching from emotional dependency. It means choosing self-respect over constant pursuit. It is the act of standing still while others realize your value. When done from the right energy, it is not a punishment. It is an act of clarity. The mind is wired to notice what it no longer has access to. When you stop reaching out, you disrupt a pattern. You remove predictability. And when predictability is gone, attention returns. That is human psychology. People do not appreciate what they believe will always be there. They start valuing it only when it is gone. Women often test men not through words, but through distance. They withdraw to see how a man responds. They want to know if his emotions control him or if his center holds steady. A man who panics when she pulls away reveals insecurity. A man who stays calm reveals strength. This calmness is not indifference. It is understanding that true connection cannot be forced. When you pull away from a woman who once rejected you, something interesting happens. At first, she may not notice. She might even feel relief. But over time, the silence grows. She begins to remember your steadiness, your attention, your energy. She starts to feel a contrast between your calm withdrawal and the noise of others around her. That contrast awakens curiosity. Curiosity grows into awareness, and awareness becomes attraction once again. The psychology of pulling away lies in energy reversal. When you chase, you give energy outward. When you stop chasing, that energy returns inward. You begin to glow differently. Your presence changes. You start investing that energy into your goals, your body, your purpose, and people can feel it. They sense the shift without you having to say a word. Pulling away is not about absence. It is about redirection. You are not walking away from her. You are walking toward yourself. You are no longer reacting. You are creating. That change in focus transforms your energy, and energy always speaks louder than intention. To pull away properly, you must be grounded in emotional control. If you do it to get a reaction, it will backfire. True distance works only when it comes from peace. If you are constantly checking to see whether she notices, your energy still belongs to her. But when you pull away to rebuild yourself, you no longer care about her reaction. That detachment becomes your strength. Pulling away is an emotional detox. It clears the residue of overthinking, of overgiving, of trying too hard. It gives you space to hear your own thoughts again. It helps you remember what peace feels like. In that space, you begin to see where you gave too much power away. You see the moments when you lost yourself trying to hold on to someone else. Women respect men who can walk away, not because they want to be abandoned, but because it shows discipline. It shows self-control. It shows that you value yourself enough to choose peace over validation. The man who can walk away calmly from what no longer respects him is the man who eventually attracts what truly values him. Pulling away also resets attraction. When you give too much, the energy becomes one-sided. You begin to lose polarity. But when you step back, polarity returns. She begins to feel your absence. She begins to question her assumptions. She starts to reflect on her own behavior. That reflection is what reignites attraction. It is not manipulation. It is nature. Distance creates tension. Tension creates reflection. Reflection creates change. And that change restores balance. There is a moment in every relationship when silence becomes more powerful than speech. When distance communicates more clearly than effort. When you reach that moment, pulling away becomes necessary. It is your way of saying, I have done my part. Now it is time for you to meet me halfway. This is the point where self-respect and emotional intelligence intersect. You no longer fight to be understood. You no longer explain your worth. You no longer chase closure. You simply step back and allow your absence to speak. The beauty of pulling away is that it changes not only how others see you, but how you see yourself. You start realizing that you are not defined by who stays or who leaves. You are defined by how you carry yourself in both situations. You realize that peace is not found in control, but in surrendering to what is real. A man who understands this psychology does not chase. He creates. He does not beg, he builds. He does not need constant reassurance because he has found stability within. That energy is irresistible because it communicates strength without words. When a woman feels that energy, she begins to wonder what changed. She begins to question whether she made a mistake. The same silence she once ignored now carries gravity. The same distance she thought she wanted now feels uncomfortable. That is the quiet power of pulling away. Pulling away is not about being unavailable. It is about being unavailable to disrespect, confusion, and inconsistency. It is about creating space for truth to surface and for peace to return. It's about choosing your self-worth over your emotions. In the process of pulling away, you will face doubt. Your mind will try to convince you to reach out. Your emotions will tell you that silence means loss. But every time you resist the urge to react, you grow stronger. Every time you stay calm, you reclaim power. The psychology of pulling away is built on patience. You cannot force awareness in others. You can only give them the space to feel it. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they do not. But either way, you win because you find clarity. Distance reveals truth. It shows who was there for connection and who was there for convenience. It shows who misses you and who only missed your attention. It shows you who you were trying to save instead of letting go. When you understand this, you begin to move differently. You stop chasing love and start becoming love. You stop trying to prove your value and start living it. You stop begging to be chosen and start choosing peace. Pulling away is not the end of connection. It is the beginning of alignment. It is how you remind the world that your energy is sacred, your presence is valuable, and your peace is non-negotiable. And when you master the psychology of pulling away, something beautiful happens. The same people who once overlooked you start to look again. The same ones who took you for granted start to question their choices, not because you chased, but because you chose yourself. That is the real power of distance. It does not push love away. It purifies it. It does not end attraction. It refines it. It does not create loss. It creates clarity, because in the quiet space where you stop chasing and start evolving, everything that is meant for you will find its way back. And this time, it will stay for the right reasons. Chapter 10. When she returns, what to do next. There is a quiet moment that every man remembers. The moment she comes back. The message you did not expect. The sudden warmth after silence. The moment you realize the same woman who once walked away has found her way back. It can feel like victory. It can feel like justice. But if you are not grounded, it can also become a trap. When she returns, everything inside you wants to celebrate. Your ego whispers that you were right. Your emotions stir with memories. Your heart races with possibility. But before you open that door, you must ask yourself one question. Who are you now? Are you the same man she rejected, or have you become the man who no longer needs her approval? When a woman comes back, she is not always returning for love. Sometimes she is returning for familiarity. Sometimes she is drawn to your transformation, but she does not yet understand it. Sometimes she misses the attention she once had from you, not the connection itself. You must be wise enough to tell the difference. Reconnection without reflection is repetition. If you let her back in without understanding what broke before, you will relive the same pain in a new form. The purpose of distance was never revenge. It was revelation. It was to show both of you what needed to change. When she returns, your job is not to rush back into comfort. It is to remain calm in clarity. Your silence, your focus, your growth, all of it shifted the energy. She felt it. It reminded her of something rare, stability. In a world where most men react, you became the one who remained still. That stillness is what made her curious again. She returns because the energy she once dismissed now feels magnetic. But you cannot let that attention pull you off balance. The moment you break your new center, the dynamic resets. If she senses that her return instantly puts you back into old patterns of overgiving and overthinking, she will lose the same attraction that brought her back. What brings her back is your peace. What will keep her there is your purpose. When she returns, listen more than you speak. Pay attention not just to what she says, but how she says it. Is she seeking connection or validation? Is she curious or cautious? People often reveal their truth through tone, not words. Do not rush to fill the silence. Let her energy tell you her intentions. This is your moment of awareness. You are no longer chasing. You are observing. You are the calm in the middle of emotion. That calm is what separates a man who repeats his past from a man who rewrites it. If you decide to let her back into your life, do it from strength, not from scarcity. Do it because it aligns with your peace, not because you fear being alone. The power is not in rejecting her. It is in remaining unaffected. You do not need to prove that you have moved on. True growth never needs to announce itself. It is visible in your energy, your composure, and your restraint. When a woman comes back, her return tests your evolution. It asks whether your transformation was genuine or just a performance. If you slip into old patterns, the universe will teach you the same lesson again. But if you stay grounded, you complete the cycle. You no longer attract from need, but from alignment. Remember that peace is the final stage of healing. When she returns, she might expect the same emotional landscape she left behind. But what she finds is different. You are different. You are not angry, not cold, not distant. You are simply whole. You do not punish her with silence, and you do not reward her too quickly with access. You move with balance. Women can feel the difference between a man who is pretending to be calm and a man who has become calm. One is playing defense. The other is living truth. Your stillness must come from inner strength, not suppressed emotion. That is what makes you magnetic. It is not the absence of feeling. It is mastery over it. When she reaches out, respond with warmth but not attachment. Be kind but do not chase. Be open but not desperate. This balance will tell her everything she needs to know. It will show her that you value connection but not at the cost of your peace. That kind of maturity is irresistible because it communicates power without words. You may find that when she returns, you no longer feel the same pull. That is not indifference. It is growth. You outgrew the version of yourself that needed her to feel complete. And now you are meeting her from a place of abundance, not emptiness. That is where true connection begins. But if part of you still wants her, do not feel ashamed. Desire is human. What matters is whether that desire leads or follows your purpose. Love should complement your path, not replace it. The moment love becomes your purpose, you lose both yourself and her. But when you stand in purpose, love adds meaning instead of confusion. When she returns, make peace your priority. Ask yourself, does this connection bring calm or chaos? Does it elevate your growth or test your discipline? The right answer is always found in how you feel after, not during. Excitement fades, but peace lasts. It is possible to care deeply without losing yourself. It's possible to love someone and still keep your boundaries intact. In fact, that is the only kind of love that lasts. Because respect without boundaries becomes control, and affection without balance becomes dependency. Let her see the man who has found peace in his own company. Let her feel the steadiness in your tone. Let her experience the difference between the man who once reacted and the man who now reflects. That shift will say more than any speech could. Do not rush to rebuild what fell apart. If she truly values your growth, she will match your patience. She will meet you in clarity, not confusion. She will approach you with respect, not assumption. Sometimes she comes back to stay. Sometimes she comes back only to close a chapter. Either way, your role is the same. Stay grounded, stay calm, stay true to yourself. You are not responsible for her feelings. You are responsible for your balance. The truth is, when you have grown enough, her return no longer defines you. It simply reveals how far you have come. You begin to see that the real lesson was never about getting her back. It was about getting yourself back. Her return is not the climax of your story. It is the confirmation that your growth was real. It is life showing you that your transformation was felt, seen, and recognized. But the real reward is not her presence. It is your peace. When she returns, let her see that the man she once left no longer exists. Let her meet the man who stands firm, who loves from choice, who speaks with calm certainty. Let her see the strength that no rejection could shake, and whether she stays or leaves again, you remain the same, whole, grounded, free. Because the true ending of this story is not about who came back. It is about who you became when they did.